Okay, we are going to be in Psalm 13 this afternoon. If you turn Bibles there, and we are doing not a verse-by-verse in-depth study or sermon, but just devotional thoughts, a few thoughts on the various Psalms. All right, we do this just once a month, typically, but we don't have a dinner every month. So I went back and looked. We started 18 months ago, so it's 13 Psalms in 18 months. So I calculated that out. I had to recalculate, and we'll get to Psalm 150 when I'm 80 years old. So we'll see if that happens or not. Don't hold your breath on that. Okay, Psalm 13. This is another short psalm, just 6 verses in length, and written by David, we're told, to the chief musician. A psalm of David. Short psalm, but good lessons for us. First 2 verses, it breaks up into simple outline, if you're interested in that. The first 2 verses, David talks about a problem that he has, especially where's God, essentially. Verses 3 and 4 are prayers, or a prayer. Verse 1 and 2 are kind of prayers, but not really praying, but more complaining than praying. And then verse 5 and 6 are praising the Lord for the answer that he has come or knows will come. And good little psalm. I'm going to read all 6 verses, and we'll start sharing some thoughts on them. Psalm 13, verse 1. How long wilt thou forget me, O Lord? Forever? How long wilt thou hide thy face from me? How long shall I take counsel in my soul, having sorrow in my heart daily? How long shall my enemy be exalted over me? Consider and hear me, O Lord my God. Lighten mine eyes, lest I sleep the sleep of death. Lest mine enemies say, I have prevailed against him, and those that trouble me rejoice when I am moved. But I have trusted in thy mercy. My heart shall rejoice in thy salvation. I will sing unto the Lord, because he hath dealt bountifully with me. In a short psalm, but a very stark change, a contrast from the first couple of verses, how long, and to the last phrase, he has dealt bountifully with me. Quite a difference in these few words. Yeah, Psalm of David, out of the first 13 Psalms, 11 are known to be written by David. 2 are anonymous, don't know for sure one way or the other. And likely this is written either when or as he's looking back at a time when he was fleeing from David. That was a time early in his life, or young adulthood, where his life was constantly in danger, and it lasted for a long time. And that could be what he's referring to here. We have 3 main thoughts for us to think about, a couple subpoints on one of them, but first devotional thought, waiting on the Lord can be a hard thing to do. Waiting on the Lord can be a hard thing to do. Yeah, David is facing trouble of some sort, quite possibly Saul chasing him. And he's trusting in the Lord. He's expecting and wanting the Lord to help him. But those first 2 verses, 4 different times, he asks God, how long? How long will you forget me? How long will you hide your face? How long shall I take counsel in my soul? How long shall my enemy be exalted over me? He looks, and as time goes on, as he's asking God how long, David looks at God and says, this is what appears from David's perspective and in his mind and heart, what God is doing and what David is feeling at the very least. Verse 1, he feels forgotten. How long wilt thou forget me? Feeling like God isn't thinking about it, just forgot all about David. He feels like God is ignoring him, hiding his face from him. So he's forgotten all about me in one case, in one part of the verse. He's ignoring me, doesn't want to help me, doesn't want to deal with me at all. Verse number 2, David feels like he's all on his own. He's got to figure this out himself. I take counsel in my soul. Not counsel from God, not counsel from other friends or supporters or counselors. counts in his own soul. Like it's all up to him to deal with this. And then, not surprisingly, a conclusion to that, if you really think those three things are true, God's forgotten you, He's ignoring you all by yourself, you feel defeated. The end of verse 2. How long shall my enemy be exalted over me? Now, he hasn't literally lost the battle yet. Verse 4, unless he's thinking two different times, but he's saying, lest my enemies say I have prevailed against him, and those that trouble me rejoice. But it's a clear possibility. Anyways, how long will this go on? And these words here suggest that he's expecting God to help. He hasn't given up on God. That verse 2, take counsel in his own soul. He's trying to think of some other options maybe, but he's keep asking God, how long, how long, how long, as if he's still expecting God to help. He's waiting on the Lord, in other words. He hasn't given up on God. He doesn't think God's completely given up on him and abandoned him fully. And finally, he's expecting God to help, but he's just not sure when that help will come. And so he's waiting on the Lord, and that can be a hard thing to do. And the longer we're waiting on God, the harder it gets to keep waiting on God. I think it was last Sunday afternoon we were talking about what exasperates God and what exasperates each of us. And I mentioned the thing that exasperates me are red lights. I hate red lights. Waiting on anything isn't enjoyable or easy to do unless you're a very, very patient person. Enjoy waiting, you're good at waiting, but most of us aren't good at waiting. That's what David's going through. He's asking God 4 times, how long is this going to keep going on? David is also one who tells us many times, I shall wait on the Lord, and calls on us to wait on the Lord. We sang Psalm 37, which didn't include that particular phrase, but wait on the Lord. Trust also in him is found in that 37th Psalm written by David. It's a thing he knows we need to do. He instructs others to do. But even for him, it's not an easy thing to do. So that's the first couple of verses in the first devotional thought. Waiting on the Lord can be a hard thing to do, but just got to keep doing it. The answer will come eventually, and even David shows us that here. But it's not always as soon as we want it to. Number 2, lesson 2, or thought number 2. Look at your trials in the light of who God is. Look at your trials in the light of who God is. Again, reading this psalm, especially the first 4 verses, I don't know the details, but we can understand kind of what David is going through. Facing some enemy, Saul and Israel's army quite likely. And we can understand his complaint, why he's upset about the delay, how long. Quite likely he is greatly outnumbered. It's David, and if this is the event, he has a few hundred men with him, and they're kind of the ragtag people. Those are in distress, those in debt, things like that. The Bible describes them as not trained soldiers, not brave warriors, just friends and supporters of David, willing to be with him, but not experienced, and not many of them. Saul has an entire army, as many soldiers as he wants, he can get. Not only is David outnumbered in terms of people, but he would have far less weaponry. Slingshots, swords, a little bit, but he's not an army, he doesn't have an army, Saul does. And Saul can and would equip his soldiers well. David is probably tired. He's having to be on the move a lot. He doesn't just stay in one place. You read through 1 Samuel where this is described, and he's traveling. You kind of trace on a map or something like that, all over the place where he's going at, from one wilderness to another, to a cave, and all sorts of places like that. And he's probably not able to just sit down and rest, unless he knows for sure that Saul is nowhere, none of Saul's men are anywhere nearby. He can't relax because Saul is hunting him down. He describes himself as like a bird being chased, hunted. That's how David felt. He described that in another psalm. So he's tired. He has to be on the alert and on the move constantly as he's running from and hiding from Saul. And then as well, he has to be wondering about God's plan. Before David is being chased, God, or through Samuel, had anointed David to be the next king of Israel. And so, okay, I'm anointed to be king, but here I am living in the wilderness, living in a cave, a few hundred supporters and friends, and my life is constantly in danger. What type of a kingdom is this? And wondering perhaps about the plan of God. And that all amounts to, is part of this waiting on God for everything. But that's what David is facing, the troubles that he is going through. And if you think about just going through trials, it's good to remember the Lord first of all, just remember God. But in doing so, remember who he is, how the Bible describes him. What is God like? What are his attributes? So look again at verses 1 and 2, these four statements that David makes about himself. We'll go down a little bit as well in later verses. And then think about who God is that answers what David is facing. First of all, literally, did God forget David? David thought so. How long wilt thou forget me? Forever? He thinks that God has forgotten him. The word forget, the Hebrew word translated that, actually means to be misplaced, as if God placed him in the wrong spot. Now we misplace things. I misplaced our car at Walmart, the Walmart parking lot the other day. I thought it was this aisle, it was over in this aisle instead, and I'm wandering around. I felt like a 90-year-old, no offense, Bill, but felt like a 90-year-old man. Can't remember where he parked his car at. And our car is a basic white. 90% of the cars look like ours, I think. And as I'm wandering around, little old lady came up and said, "Can I help you across the street?" type of thing. You can tell I'm tired. I'm talking a lot of jokes, but does God forget us? Can God forget us? And the answer, of course, is no. Letter A, did God forget? He is omniscient. He's omniscient. He knows everything about everything. He knows everything that you're going through. He didn't misplace you. He knows where you are at all times. Knows what you're going through. He saw David in the wilderness. He saw David in the cave. He saw David fleeing for his life. Everything about David, God was fully aware of. So did God forget David? Did God misplace David? No, he can't. He's omniscient. So if you ever attempt to think that God's forgotten about you, just remember he can't forget about you. Even if he wanted to, he can't. He's omniscient. Letter B, is God hiding? How long wilt thou hide thy face from me? Covering his face. You know, we do that with babies on a little game, hide your face and peekaboo. That's it. Sometimes we avoid people. We don't want people to see us. We don't want to see people for a certain person, maybe because of something, some conflict with them. Is God ever like that? Does God avoid us? Does God hide from us or hide his face? I don't care about that. I'm going to hide my face. I'm not interested in that person. And again, the answer is no, he can't. Letter B, he is compassionate. He is compassionate. He cares about us. He loves us. He not only knows about what we're going through, being omniscient, but he cares for us when we're going through troubles. What Peter wrote in 1 Peter 5, cast all your cares upon him, for he careth for you. Don't be worried. Don't be anxious. Don't think God doesn't care and he's hiding from you. He's not like that. What he is like is a compassionate God. So did God forget? No, he can't. He's omniscient. Is God hiding? No, he can't. He's compassionate. He can't and he won't. Letter C, do you have sorrow? David spoke of that, verse 2. How long shall I take counsel in my soul, having sorrow in my heart daily? And kind of connected to that is verse 3. Consider and hear me, O Lord my God. Lighten my eyes, lest I sleep the sleep of death. Cheer me up is kind of the idea. It's not lighten like some think it's like he's closing his eyes in death, but it's probably not that. It's more he's just worn out, discouraged, tired, things along those lines, excessive sorrow. Lord, help me, consider me, hear me, listen, respond to me. Do you have sorrow? Well, that is a possibility. God can't forget. God can't hide, and he won't. But you could have sorrow. But there's an attribute of God for that too. Letter C, he is merciful. He is merciful. God won't ignore us in our troubles. God won't hide from us in our troubles. God won't laugh at our troubles. He may laugh at the unbeliever's troubles. He's not going to laugh at our troubles. Instead, verse 5 of the psalm comes toward the end. But I have trusted in thy mercy. My heart shall rejoice in thy salvation. I will sing unto the Lord because he hath dealt bountifully with me. If you have sorrow, remember God is a merciful God. And David says, I trust in that. I trust in his mercy. When Jesus in Luke 4 came to Nazareth, or returned to Nazareth, and went in the synagogue and read from the scriptures, brought him a scroll, he read from Isaiah 61. One of the lines of that scroll that he read, and that he said, today is this fulfilled in your ears, is that he came to heal the brokenhearted, bind up the brokenhearted. Are you sorrowful? Well, okay, God is merciful. He'll bind up that broken heart that you have. So, going through bad times, think about the attributes of God. Omniscience, compassion, mercy. Letter D, do you have an enemy? Well, good possibility. We have a spiritual enemy, of course. Satan's our adversary. You may have an earthly enemy, not that you should or should want that, but we sometimes don't get along with somebody, and sometimes somebody's against us. We try to befriend them. David had many enemies, especially early on in this part of his lifetime. Many enemies. Yeah, David had enemies. We mentioned this morning about Goliath. David defeated Goliath with the Lord's help, just one-on-one, but David was outnumbered, not outnumbered, but outsized. He had no weaponry, just a sling and 5 smooth stones. Goliath not only had full armor, but he even had an armor bearer, shield bearer. Some guy standing in front of him holding a shield for him. Clearly outmatched. And yet David defeated Goliath with the Lord's help. David is now facing, again, assuming this is David and Saul, David is facing Saul. Saul was afraid to fight Goliath. He refused. He didn't even want David. He thought, you're not a warrior who can take care of this. But Saul, the tallest man there, besides Goliath, refused to get involved. Saul had an army, and Saul's army refused to get involved when it was David and Goliath, that event. Every day for days, Goliath came out and challenged the army of Israel. And nobody stood up and said, we'll take this guy on, we'll fight him, until this little shepherd boy David came in. But now, that's some years previous, or at least some time previous. The end of verse 2, the same people who were afraid to fight the giant that David fought. The end of verse 2, how long shall my enemy be exalted over me? Again, David was not defeated in the sense of an ultimate defeat, that he had lost fully the battle. In verse 4, after praying, light my eyes, lest mine enemies say, I have prevailed against him, and those that trouble me rejoice when I am moved. He's under attack. He's got enemies, being troubled by people. But they aren't completely victorious yet. And David could actually look at another attribute of God and say, I've got an enemy. He's more powerful. He's got greater weapons than I do. He outnumbers me by many. The army of Israel versus David and his few friends. But letter D, God is omnipotent. God is omnipotent. And with God being on David's side, David, even though he's outnumbered, he's out-weaponed, David could still say, I've got the advantage here. We've been going through Hebrews in the 4 o'clock service and quoted this verse a couple times in the morning as well. If God be for us, who can be against us? He is omnipotent, and we may have one enemy, we have an army of enemies, but if God is on our side, who can really be against us? They may stand against us, but they can't defeat us in being against us. Saul has an army on his side. David has the Almighty God on his side. And you could always think of that. So again, number 2, look at your trials in the light of who God is. Don't just say, woe is me, I'm going through these bad times. God's forgotten me, God's ignoring me, I'm full of sorrow, my enemy's exalted. Think of your troubles, but remember who God is as you do so. He's omniscient, He's compassionate, He's merciful, He's omnipotent, and there's many, many other attributes of God that we can think about during troubles like that. So that's number 2. Number 3, rely on your relationship to the Lord. Rely on your relationship to the Lord. David is facing a lot of things here. He has enemies, troubles. He seems or he feels like God is nowhere near him, not helping him, not listening. He has to get his attention, consider and hear me. It's like God is not anywhere at all involved in David's life. But then look at the title that David gives to God in verse 3. Verse 1, he says, how long wilt thou forget me, O Lord? But verse 3, when he's appealing for help, consider and hear me, O Lord my God. O Lord my God. And if you can honestly say that He is your God, no matter what you're going through, you are blessed and you have the advantage. He is your God. This psalm, maybe don't notice as we read through it, but it is a very personal psalm. I, me, my, mine. Do you notice all the times it's in there? I went through and counted them in King James here 19 times in 6 verses. Either I or me or my or mine, David says. Talking about himself. Not collectively, not talking about the nation, not talking about his family, just himself personally. Sometimes it's a hard truth, he's sort of thought anyways. How long wilt thou forget me? Hide thy face from me. I take counsel of my soul. But that third verse, consider and hear me, O Lord my God. Light to my eyes, lest I sleep the sleep of death. Remember, if you are believing in the Lord Jesus Christ, that you belong to Him. You can say, I am His, but you can also say, He is mine. And we don't usually say that for whatever reason, He is mine. It's actually in the Scriptures. But we often will say, I am His. He bought me, He owns me. But it's also true, He is yours, O Lord my God. Not that you own Him and can control Him, but you have that close personal relationship with Him. That's what the Lord wants. And that's what David mentions here. Again, when he's complaining, he just says, Jehovah. How long wilt thou forget me, O Jehovah, O Lord? But when he's praying, appealing for help, consider and hear me, O Lord my God. I'm relying on the relationship that I have with you. And based on that, confident you'll help. The last couple of verses. Again, I won't point them out, but I have trusted in thy mercy. My heart shall rejoice in thy salvation. I will sing unto the Lord, because he hath dealt bountifully with me. Rely on that relationship with the Lord. Talk with Him personally when you're going through difficulties. Remember Thomas, when he had missed the first time after the evening of the Lord's resurrection. The other disciples were there, Thomas wasn't. All week long, he'd been hearing, Jesus is risen, we've seen Him, and women saw Him, the disciples saw Him, others perhaps saw Him as well. Thomas hearing this, but He says, no, unless I see him and touch him, put my hands in the wounds, I will not believe, he said. But then when he saw Jesus Christ, O Lord, my Lord and my God, he said. He had not believed he was risen from the dead for a week. But when he understood and saw he really is risen from the dead, he didn't run from him, didn't hide from him, didn't deny anything. He said, my Lord and my God. That same event, although with the resurrection day, Jesus and Mary Magdalene, she didn't recognize him. She called him the gardener, Mary, and then she said, Master, Rabboni, my master, my rabbi. Rely upon your relationship to the Lord when you're going through difficult times. So that's 3 devotional thoughts. Waiting on the Lord can be a hard thing to do. Look at your trials in light of who God is, not how bad your problems are, but how great and big your God is. And then rely upon the relationship that you have with the Lord. Rely upon him and your relationship with him.